Hey, my Emo brothers, back again, and this is the review of Insecure, Season 5, Episode 8. Only two more to go, y'all. Only two more to go. And Insecure will be in the history books. But coming off of last week's review where the message was for Issa to own her choices. And that's still ringing true today. And same thing for Molly. Molly started something new. And one thing about Molly owns her choices, good or bad. That's going to come up a little later. But since this is very heavily the two partners, I think last week was more Molly. I think this week is more Issa. But it seems like Molly has decided to embrace her relationship with Torian. Molly's been looking for an equal for a while. Molly's always dominated. For the most part, dominated her relationships, even with Dro. Dro was more concubine than leader in a relationship. Torian is her equal. And I think that's what Molly is enjoying. And I think they're at the age where they can actually come together and kind of relax with each other, because I think they've been looking for the same thing. They've been looking for somebody that's parallel to them. They're both climbers. They're both just as aggressive. They have a lot in common, and ever since the incident with Molly's mother and the retreat, Torian and Molly have found out they have a hell of a lot more in common than they do separately. And I think what she's finding out is that she finally finds somebody that really knows her, because he's almost like her twin. So the first date, which is basically no sex because they're getting to know each other, because it really, neither one is in any rush to have sex because they've already been there, done that. And so when they're at the Issa's event and they're talking about it, and Molly's ready to get busy because she needs a stress reliever, Torian is actually taking it slow because he wants to make sure that it's right. So when we see Molly again, and Molly has to go through the painful finances between her father and her mother. Most parents don't really talk about their finances to their children. That's just something that I don't think any parent is actually socialized to do, is really have their kids go through their finances. And with them making a will and making an estate, now they have to dig through all the details, and that's uncomfortable, not only to the parents, but also to Molly, because what happens when your daughter's way more successful than you are? And when you find out after 50 years of working, there's really not that much to pass on. That's what happens when you come from humble people, salt of the earth. And it's very tough, and very tough to not only go through that, but also think about what's going to happen when your parents are no longer around after they've been there for so long. Not an easy thing to do. And with Molly almost losing her mother, and her mother getting sick, and her father getting older, she faces the mortality of not only her parents, but also herself. And when she gets back into the car, she finishes, and Torian calls her, and they're supposed to go out on a date. She finds out that she really can't handle it. And normally Molly would put on her mask and be the tough, I don't give a shit Molly, or the alcoholic, I'm drunk and I'm going to let my guard down Molly. Instead, she, probably for once in her life, maybe all the disappointments she's had in the therapy, she decided to really let Torian in. And to her surprise, Torian understands, because Torian knows her. Even though he doesn't really know her, he knows her because they are the same person. And he understands that she needs to be alone and unwind and process what just happened. So later on, when she's in her apartment and after she finished talking to Issa, the door rings and there's a delivery for her. Now, her and Torian are supposed to go out, and they're supposed to go to a sort of like a mixer, where they have to bring their own bottle and drink and eat and have a good time, but she didn't. So what Torian does is he sends her a package with some wine and some food. And what he says in the text is, wine and wings always make things better. So that proves that he knows who Molly is, and he knows what will make her smile, and it does. And it's so thoughtful, she has to smile. So maybe, just maybe, this is the one. The person that your rival, that you think that you don't like, or you thought you didn't like, happens to be the one that knows you the most. And that's normally what happens. If you think about comic books, who knows you best? Is it your friends or your arch enemy? Who knows Batman the best? Is it Commissioner Gordon? Is it his woman? Or is it the Joker? It's the Joker, because they're the same person, just on different sides of the coin. And sometimes when you have a person on the opposite side that is your rival, that also all of a sudden becomes your lover, those are the ones that actually know you best, because they're just like you. And maybe, just maybe, Molly has finally reached to that point where she's learned all her lessons and she's ready to accept. But that's Molly. This is a very heavy Issa episode. Now, this begins with Issa and Nathan in the bed and him waking up. And it seems that time has passed, and Issa and Nathan has been spending a lot of time together, weeks together. So comfortable that Nathan has been leaving clothes over Issa's house because she's wearing one of his t-shirts that she's been hiding and that now belongs to him. That's very common. That's your women stealing clothes and wearing them when you're not there. That's very common. But they wake up and Issa and her and Nain, his sense of humor, where she's talking about, what she's thinking about is, why do squirrels act like they so busy? And Nathan goes along with it, yeah, like they have a job. And that's that sarcastic sense of humor that Issa has. So Issa talks about what's going to happen, what the future is, whether she's going to have to visit Tiffany when they're in Denver. Asks Nathan where he's going, and Nathan says, hell no. And they laugh. But you can see they've been together because his toothbrush is there, and they're talking about moving in together because they spend so much time together. He spends so much time over at her house. And I know she kind of halfway thinks about it because she spent 5 years living with Lawrence. Are they ready for that? Is she ready for that? It seems like it's something that she needs. It seems like something that he wants. But the way she looks and her answer, well, I'm not quite sure that she's really ready for that level of commitment. Even though it's something that she asked for. She really asked for this level of commitment. So they're preparing to go, and Issa's got her event, and we show up at Issa's event, and it seems that she's talked the people in the district to actually come out and support, actually come out and vent, actually come out and get people on board. Whereas in the last episode, she was having problems with Crenshaw and the community, but they actually got behind her. And this is where you see, Kelly and Molly show up, and also see Nathan and his cousin. You remember Nathan and his cousin when they kind of like had their little blow up? But it seems like a lot of things have healed in the past couple of episodes, where a lot of things that were kind of out of whack have been stitched back together. So the event's going well. Nathan seems to be doing well. Issa and Nathan seem to be doing well. So everything is coming along. Everything's in order. Even when they end the event and they're walking back to the car, Crenshaw shows up and he wants to work with her now because he finally figured out that the stuff that she does is not easy. And whether you have disagreements or not, it's still not easy. Because he tried to do the same thing that she was doing as far as putting together events and stuff like that and getting permits, and he wasn't trained. He found out it's a lot tougher to do than he thought. He found out that he really needs Issa, and Issa did a lot more for him than he thought. So he's trying to convince Issa to actually come back. And naturally so, you literally were called a sellout, and he literally dragged you through social media. Now he wants to come begging back to work together. So Issa's got a lot to decide. So she says she'll think about it, and she gets in the car, she goes home. Now, and once she's at home, MBW is actually sending her an offer, because then at the event, MBW is kind of proud of what she's been able to do over the past few events. And they're making progress as far as making impressions in the greater Los Angeles area. You've got to remember, Los Angeles is being gentrified. And there's mucho money in LA. And so they're on the ground floor. And Issa is tapped into the community of where they want to go. So they want to make an offer. And so Issa's having this daydream about where this could actually go. They go from this, little theater when they go through the door. Now they have assistants, and they have this big ass theater with these huge events. Then it expands from Los Angeles to Detroit, and she's on stage talking about where she came from. So remember in the first episode where she's at Stanford talking about what the block is and she can't explain it? Now she's having this daydream, this lucid dream about where her future could go. And now she's this mogul, and she flies back, and she's living in West Hollywood with Nathan next to MBW. And she's having this big, expansive dream. Now on the plane, she meets Ty Dolla $ign, and Ty Dolla $ign says that he's flying back with her on first class to actually work with Crenshaw. And so now Issa's having this ambiguity about whether she made the right choice. Whether should she go for the money or should she stay with her roots. Now, Crenshaw has not given up, okay? Crenshaw is literally stalking her now because he has to convince her to work with him again because he wants to be tapped in to where they're going, and he realizes it's better to be with her than without her. So he's making his pitch. Now, Issa's already been kind of tapped in to working with the community. And she wants both things. She wants, stressfully, she wants to make the money, but she also wants the prestige and the local cred of working with a community. And she has another daydream about working with Crenshaw and them expanding what he does and moving them from one store to the next store and making his name bigger and making more of an impact on the local community. And she has this lucid dream about Tyra Banks giving her the key to the city of Inglewood. So now she has a choice. And that's when she is, in her dream, coming back home with the key to the city on the wall, back to the apartment. And she's asking Nathan, because the first time she asked Nathan why we moved, because in the first dream, why did we move? Because we wanted to be closer to MBW, so they moved to West Hollywood. Now in this dream, she's still in the same spot, still in the apartment, because they're entrepreneurs and they're saving on rent. So in one dream, she's making all the money and she's flying first class, expanding to multiple cities. And in this dream, she's staying to her roots, but she doesn't have the money. So there's a choice. And this is where Lawrence shows up, where Nathan has said he's proud of her. And then Lawrence shows up and says he's proud of her, and he scared the crap out of her, right? Because this is the ghost. This is the ghost of Christmas past. And Lawrence shows up in her dream, and and he tries to kiss her, and she reacts kind of unfavorably. Then she pops out of it, and I guess she's back in front of the mirror. And the mirror, and the mirror bitch is saying that, what are you unhappy about? Didn't you see how things were lit? Working with Crenshaw and all the things that could be happening, and that kind of dream where you could actually go. And she says, yeah, but why was Lawrence there? And she said, remember when you called him and then he called you back? And then remember when you shot Condola's baby into the laundry basket? She says, good times. In other words, maybe things aren't done yet. She said, maybe there's a little voice in the back of your head saying things aren't done yet. And she says, you're my little voice. And then Issa gets up and walks out, and she calls Molly. And she calls Molly about making a choice. And this is Molly, this is after Molly has come back from her parents' house, and she's sitting on the couch. And Molly has already done the work where Issa needs to go. Molly has made a choice and owned it. And Molly says, no matter which choice you make, it's going to be the right choice for you. Whether you succeed, whether you fail, whether you wind up someplace in the middle, you got to make a choice and you got to own it. Own your choice. because you'll be happier when you do. And that's what this whole last 3 episodes about. It's about you owning a choice and being happier when you do. Nobody knows what's right and what's wrong. All you can do is make a choice and live with it. Here's what it is. And this is the test. This is the test for Issa. For this series, this is the final test. Is she going to succeed? Is she going to pass it? Can she do what she's never done, which is make a choice and stick with it? You made Nathan make a choice. You pressed Nathan to make a choice. You pressed Nathan to choose you. Now you don't want to stand on your square because the ghost of Lawrence is haunting you. The thing is, it doesn't matter. In my opinion, it doesn't matter. You decided that you wanted to settle for Nathan, so settle for him. You decided to go for MBW against Crenshaw, so rock with that. Whatever choice you make, you're going to have to own it, and you have to stand on it. And that's a lesson that she's going to have to learn. All this waffling back and forth, not knowing what to do, asking people's questions, not going to do anything. Eventually, the choice is going to be yours. You're going to have to make it, and you're going to have to stick with it. Molly's already learned that, with the facing the fact of what her parents are in their mortality. Molly has actually accepted that. Life is life, and there are no perfect answers. Ace is looking for that happy medium, that absolutely 100% right choice, and there isn't one. And that's what we're going to see in the next episode. It's already hinting that her and Lawrence are actually going to meet at least one more time. But eventually, Issa's going to have to grow up and stop being a child. And hopefully this time she makes the right decision and lets Lawrence go. Stop insisting on things that you may or may not want. If you insist on something that you want and you put people in position, make a choice. And that should be for anybody. With that, I'm going to jump off here. This is BGS out, and I'll see you guys on the next.